You ever been stuck waiting for a crypto transaction, just staring at the screen and it feels like it's taken forever? Yeah, we've all been there. Well, today we are diving into Sui, a next-gen blockchain that was literally built from the ground up to fix that exact problem, the crippling issues of speed and scale that hold so many other networks back.
But before we get into the solution, we've got to ask the big question. Why are most blockchains, even the big famous ones, so frustratingly slow? It turns out there's this fundamental design flaw, a bottleneck that forces pretty much everything into one single jammed-up line. And that's the core problem we're going to unpack right now.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to pinpoint that exact bottleneck. Then, we'll uncover Sui's secret sauce, this thing called the object model. After that, we'll see how it puts parallel processing into action. And finally, we'll cover what the Sui token actually does to fuel this whole high-speed ecosystem.
Okay, let's talk about that bottleneck. Picture this, all the traffic on a blockchain trying to merge onto a tiny, single-lane country road. It doesn't matter if you're a little scooter or a giant semi-truck, everyone has to wait in the exact same line, one behind the other. That, in a nutshell, is how most traditional blockchains operate. It's called sequential processing, and it's the real reason things get so congested.
And this comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? The old way, sequential processing, means every single transaction has to just wait its turn. So your simple token transfer could get stuck behind some super complex DeFi operation. But with Sui's parallel processing, well, if two transactions have nothing to do with each other, they can be handled at the same time. It's like turning that one-lane road into a massive, multi-lane superhighway.
So how in the world does Sui build this superhighway? The answer is its secret sauce, the one core innovation that just changes everything, its unique data model. This right here is where Sui makes a fundamental break from the past. See, instead of thinking about accounts that hold balances, Sui thinks about objects. Literally everything on the network, your tokens, your NFTs, even smart contracts is its own independent object. And this is so important, it's not just some small tweak. We're talking about a complete architectural shift from the ground up.
And this table just illustrates the difference perfectly. On a network like Ethereum, transactions mess with the state of an entire account, which makes it really hard to tell if two transactions might conflict. But in Sui's object model, a transaction basically raises its hand and says, hey, I am only going to touch this one specific object. So if another transaction wants to touch a completely different object, the network knows instantly they won't interfere. There's no conflict. It's that simple.
So this is how we get our multi-lane superhighway. Because Sui can so easily spot unrelated transactions, it can just shuttle them into different lanes and process them all at once. This is where that magical horizontal scalability comes from, and it's what makes things like massive online games or high-frequency trading possible right on the blockchain.
Okay, so the very first step is just smart traffic management. Sui acts like a dispatcher. It looks at every single transaction that comes in and immediately sorts it into one of two buckets, simple or complex. And this initial sorting is what decides which lane that transaction gets to take.
Here's the breakdown. A simple transaction, let's say sending an NFT you own to your friend, involves what's called an owned object. Only you can approve that, right? So it gets to take the express lane, the fast path, and it gets processed almost instantly. But a complex transaction, like bidding on an NFT in a public auction, involves a shared object. Lots of people are interacting with it, so those transactions need to be ordered correctly. They take the consensus path.
Now here's the really clever part. Even that consensus path, the slower one for complex stuff, is designed for incredible speed. Sui actually decouples its consensus engine, that's just the part that gets all the computers to agree on stuff, into a specialized two-part system, so it doesn't create new bottlenecks of its own. The first part is called Narwhal. Just think of Narwhal as the data organizer. Its one and only job is to gather up all the transaction data and make sure every single validator on the network has a copy. It doesn't waste any time trying to agree on the order, it just makes sure everyone has the info they need, and it does this unbelievably fast.
The second part is called Bullshark, or its recent upgrade, Mysticeti. This is the decision maker. It takes the data that Narwhal reliably delivered and then does the important work of putting it all in a definitive order. But, and this is absolutely key, it only does this for the complex transactions, the shared objects that actually need it. This division of labor is what makes it so incredibly efficient.
Okay, so we have this high-performance engine, but what's the fuel that makes it run? Well, that's where the native Sui token comes into play.
It's not just some currency, it's the actual lifeblood of the entire network. And it has some really crucial jobs.
This chart gives us a great bird's-eye view. A huge slice of the pie goes to staking, which is where people lock up their SUI to help keep the network secure and earn rewards. Another big piece pays for gas fees, the cost of doing business. And then you have governance, which lets token holders vote on the protocol's future, plus its use as just a liquid asset inside all the apps.
So let's just recap that real quick. The SUI token is absolutely essential for the network's health. You use it to pay for all the computation. It's used to incentivize the people running the network to act honestly through delegated proof of stake. It gives the whole community a voice in where the network is headed. And of course, it powers the economy of all the dApps built on SUI. It really is central to everything.
So look, if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. The whole philosophy behind SUI's insane speed is actually super simple, but it's revolutionary. Don't make unrelated transactions wait in line for each other. That's it. By spotting them and processing them in parallel, SUI unlocks just massive throughput.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to ponder. We've just seen how this one single architectural shift, from thinking in accounts to thinking in objects, can completely rewrite the performance equation. So you have to wonder, could this object-centric approach be the real key to finally unlocking blockchain's true potential for mainstream, global-scale applications?